Hi, I'm Christina, and today I'm going to talk about all the books that I'm most excited for. So I'm going to do the rest of 2022 and then go into very early 2023. So I have my list here, so let's just get straight into it. So the first book to be published is in June, and that is Under Her Care by Lucinda Berry. So Lucinda Berry is one of my absolute favourite thriller authors of all time at this stage. I've read 3 of her books so far. I've read The Perfect Child, which I absolutely loved. I thought it was so wonderful. It's so dark, so disturbing, so well written. I have a book review on that one, so I will link that down below in case you'd like to hear my more detailed thoughts on that one. And then I also read The Best of Friends. Again, absolutely wonderful, so good. And I also read When She Returned, which I didn't enjoy as much as the other 2, but I still really enjoyed it. So 3 good thrillers there by her, and I have 2 more of her books on my bookshelves currently. And this one sounds quite interesting. So it's set in Alabama, and the wife of the mayor has been murdered, and a boy with autism is found next to the body, and everyone just assumes that he is the culprit. Now, Lucinda Berry is really good at handling kind of difficult topics, and she was a clinical psychiatrist, so she has some really good experience and she really has great representation in her books. So I think she'll do something really excellent with that concept. So I'm really looking forward to that one. I think it's going to be so good. And I might have to try and squeeze in one of her other books before that one is published. I have her most recent novel, that was published in 2021, up on my bookshelf, so I might have to read that one first, but I think that's going to be really good, and I'm really excited for that one. So the next one is going to be published in July, and this is a science fiction book, and it is Upgrade by Blake Crouch. So I've only read one of Blake Crouch's books. I read Recursion by him. I think I read that in 2020. And again, I have a book review on that, so I will link that down below. And genuinely, one of my favourite science fiction novels of all time. I just thought it was so good. The way that all of these different kind of timelines were interwoven. We had our 2 main characters, and just the way in which that book played with time, so good. I love books that play with time in an interesting way, and I was done so well. One of the best uses of time in a book for me. So yeah, I thought that was excellent. And also a lot of science fiction is just kind of lacks a lot of heart in it. There's not a lot of meaning or depth to it, I think, with the characterization and the development of the characters. But that book was just so good. So much heart. I felt so much for those characters. All of the trials and tribulations they were going through. I was rooting for both of them the whole way through. Having said that, I tried to read Dark Matter by him, and I DNF'd that one just because it felt so similar to Recursion, and I just didn't like it as much. It just didn't have the same magic. So interested to read his newest book, and this one is interesting. Obviously, on the title Upgrade, it's humans getting the next stage of evolution. So I think that sounds interesting. It's like we've upgraded who we are as a species. So yeah, I think that sounds really good. Definitely going to give it a whirl. So the next one is going to be published in August, and this one is a historical fiction book, and it is Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. That will be Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I have read, how many of her books have I read? I've read 2 of her books so far. I have read Malibu Rising. I read that last year. So good. One of my favourite historical fiction novels of all time. Just really love that story. All of the characters, I was so involved. I was so engaged in that story. And then I have most recently just read One True Loves by her, and I love that one too. So both of the stories I've read by her, definite 5-star reads, really good writing, really absorbed in the story, and yeah, character development, really good. So this one is about a retired tennis player, and she's coming back for just one more season. She's coming back out of retirement. So it doesn't sound like the kind of story I would gravitate towards, but because it's written by Taylor Jenkins Reid, I'm definitely going to pick it up. And I just want to read her entire backlist at this stage. I have 2 of her books on my shelves at the moment, and I also have another one waiting at my library. Well, I'm on the waiting list at my library. So, yes, I may or may not read another of her books before that one comes out. Well, it's August, so I'll probably read one more, let's be honest. So then, moving into September, we have The Bullet That Missed by Richard Osman. So that is the 3rd instalment in the Thursday Murder Club series. And I love the Thursday Murder Club so much. I'm going to say it again. One of my favourite mystery novels of all time. So many of my favourite of all times are on here, the same author. So it was just such a good book. I adored the characters in that story. It was just so much fun. It was so charming. It was so quintessentially British. It was great. It really made me smile. It made me laugh out loud. I was so attached to the characters. Just a really great time wrapped up in a book. Really, really good. And I've just recently read The Man Who Died Twice, and I didn't like it quite as much as the first. It kind of lost a bit of the magic of the first one, but I still really liked it. It was still a good 4-star read. So Thursday Murder Club, definite 5 stars. Man Who Died Twice, 4 stars. So very much looking forward to the 3rd instalment, just to get back in that world with those characters. And yeah, I think that's going to be a good time. I'll definitely be picking it up. So now we're moving into October, and I have 2 books for October. First of which is Our Missing Hearts by Celeste Ng. So I adore her books. It has been a long time since she's published anything, and I've been eagerly anticipating whatever she publishes next. I read both Everything I Never Told You and Little Fires Everywhere, and they're just so wonderful. Brilliant literary fiction. Just so great. I love them so much. It's been quite a few years since I've read both of them, and yes, I still think about both of those books to this day. I just love the way in which she wrote it. It was so beautiful. The characters are wonderful. So absorbed in those stories. Just such a wonderful writer. She's just absolutely my cup of tea in an author. She's just brilliant. I cannot say anything else. She's just brilliant. So I've been really looking forward to seeing whatever she writes next. And this one sounds a little bit different from what she usually writes, which is also really interesting. So we have a 12-year-old boy, and we have his father, and he now kind of stacks the bookshelves in the library at Harvard University, but he used to be this kind of wonderful linguist. And it's in this kind of, it sounds almost like a dystopian society where they're trying to preserve American culture. So it sounds like a little bit like science fiction, and I didn't want to look into it too much more because I don't want to spoil anything, but it sounds so good. And she's one of my favourite authors of all time. The way in which she writes is so beautiful. So I cannot wait to pick that one up. I think out of all of them, that might be the one that I am the most excited for, just because it's been quite a few years since she's had a new book. So it's going to be so much fun to read another story by her. She's such a good writer. So the next one in October is called Keep It in the Family by John Mars. Now, I've actually only read one of his stories. He has quite a few out there, and the one I read was What Lies Between Us, and I really liked it. Again, I've got a book review on it, so I'll link it down below in case you're interested to hear my thoughts on it. But I actually only think I gave it like 3 stars at the time, but honestly, that's one of those thriller novels that has just stayed with me over maybe a year or 2. I genuinely still think about that story, the twists and turns in that. So the concept of it was really intriguing. You have 2 women living in a house, and one of which is chained up in the attic, and the other one kind of has full run of the house. So initially you're like, oh, she's the bad person. But the way in which she keeps the way in which he keeps changing the narratives and giving you little snippets of information from both women, you've no idea who is the bad guy. It's so well written, honestly. I still think about that book, and I've asked my dad to read it too, and he still talks about that book to this day. So really liked it. And yeah, it was just such a well written book. What Lies Between Us, highly recommend it. Definitely want to read more of his books. I know he's got some stories kind of being adapted into Netflix now, and I didn't actually like that adaptation of the one that was by him, but I've heard that it's actually very different from the book itself. So gone completely off on a tangent there. So this one is about a couple who have purchased a derelict house and they're trying to turn it into their dream home. And during this process, she falls pregnant. And then one day she sees this very disturbing message written on the skirting board. And then she has the baby, and I think it's just the house is, oof, it's bad. So I'm really looking forward to that one. He really is good at writing really complex characters, and you just don't know who's good and bad, and just the way in which he writes is so good. It's so compelling. You just want to keep flipping those pages over because he's such a great writer. So yeah, really looking forward to that one. So now I'm moving into January of 2023, so I'm skipping a few months there. And this one is The Drift by Cj Tudor. So I've read 2 of her books. I've read The Chalk Man, which I enjoyed, and I also read The Burning Girls. I read this one earlier this year. I thought that was so good. So I enjoyed The Chalk Man. It was good, and I wanted to read more of her. But then I read The Burning Girls, and I thought it was so good. I thought that book was wonderful. 5-star read for me. Probably one of my favourite thrillers of this year, 2022. And this one sounds quite complex, actually. There's quite a lot going on in this one. So we have 3 main characters. We have a girl who is escaping from a really secluded, exclusive kind of boarding school, and then it crashes because there's some kind of massive snowstorm. And then at the same time, you have a former detective who's stuck on a cable car in the snowstorm. And then you also have a man who is living in an abandoned chalet with a lot of different other people, and they call this abandoned place their home. So lots of interesting characters. Think it's all going to come together in interesting ways. Thought The Chalk Man was good. Liked it. Thought The Burning Girls was so much better. And she's just really good at writing twists and turns and being really creepy. The books are definitely creepy and get you on edge, and I think they're really good. They're kind of like thriller / horror, kind of moving a little bit into the horror genre. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one. Not quite sure what to expect. So the last one I have, and this is probably the one that I am second the most excited for after the Celeste Ng one, and this one is called Exiles by Jane Harper. Now, Jane Harper, I think, is such a great author. She is one of my favourite mystery novel writers. She's so good. I've read, how many of her books have I read? I've read all of the ones that she has. I think I've read 4, so this will be her 5th book. So I first read The Dry, and that was the first instalment in a series called the Oren Folk series. And then The Force of Nature was the second one, and then this one, Exiles, is going to be the 3rd instalment in that series. Now, I love The Dry, thought it was really excellent, and I'm not going to say anything about it. It was just so good. And then The Force of Nature, the sequel, I enjoyed it, but not as much. It was just kind of a 3-star rather than a 5-star. So I'm really looking forward to this one. Now, the one that I loved the most was one of her standalones called The Lost Man. I thought that was so great. Genuinely one of my favourite mystery novels all time. It might be the top one. It might be my absolute favourite one. Thinking about it, I can't think of any more that are kind of competing with it. So yeah, let's just say it's my favourite. And then I've also read The Survivors by her. That's her most recent one, and I really enjoyed that too. Not as much as The Lost Man or The Dry. So it goes The Lost Man, The Dry, The Survivors, Force of Nature. So interesting to go back in this world with the Oren Folk character, although I have to say I think I've enjoyed the standalones more. But yeah, really looking forward to that one. I just love the way in which she writes. She writes such wonderful, complex mysteries, great characters, lots of deep kind of character developments, and just the way in which she writes is so beautiful. So she pretty much sets her book always in Australia or part of Australia. I think The Survivors was set on the island of Tasmania, and she's so good at kind of invoking that feeling. I've never been there, but it just feels so real. The way in which she writes, she's such atmospheric writing. So really looking forward to seeing her next novel, and interesting to see that kind of like continuation of the series, because I haven't actually been in that part of the series for a long time. So yeah, I think the ones I'm most excited for is Our Missing Hearts by Celeste Ng, because it's been such a long time since you've had a new book by her. I think it's going to be so good. And then The Exiles by Jane Harper. And then maybe the Lucinda Berry, or maybe the Taylor Jenkins Reid. So those are the books that I am the most excited for the rest of this year and into early next year. There's obviously so many books being published, just left, right and centre, so many publications, and these are just my absolute most anticipated. I just wanted to focus on like the ones I am really excited for. So yeah, if you are also excited for any of these books, definitely let me know. If you've got any kind of books that you're really anticipating that I've not mentioned, I'd love to know what it is. Definitely let me know down in the comments. So thank you so much for watching. Please like the video if you liked it, and please do subscribe if you'd like to see more of me talking about books. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.